A rising great power challenges the existing hegemon of the global order and starts a hegemonic war. If the hegemonic aspirant wins, it will rewrite the rules of the global game along its national interest. If the challenger is defeated, however, the status quo is maintained, but global institutions will be reformed and improved to deter potential challengers in the future. Unmanaged globalization and unmet global challenges have led to populist nationalist backlashes in recent times, which in turn have reduced international cooperation and caused gridlocks, weakening the liberal international order that took shape after World War II under US hegemony. Before and in the early days of Putin's invasion of Ukraine, Russian and Chinese political elites hopefully expected the collapse of the West. In this video, we will look at the impact of the Ukraine war on liberal hegemony or the liberal international order. We'll try to maintain an objective attitude and not adopt a normative perspective, but just focus on what is happening and maintain an empirical outlook. Basically, the hegemonic war in Ukraine is evolving towards a decisive Western victory. Putin's invasion of Ukraine united Western governments and publics under US leadership to resist Russia. As Putin's plan continues to fail, Western global hegemony strengthens. State-dominated crony capitalism in Russia fails to be a convincing alternative to liberalism. Through appropriately designed international institutions, liberal hegemony can gradually be transformed into a more inclusive and multilateral system of international cooperation and collective global governance. Globalization should be regulated and slowed down when necessary in order to minimize its harmful consequences, such as ecological damage and the undermining of democracy through kleptocracy. Autocratization is clearly associated with high corruption, and democratization improves economic performance as well. A sustainable global order must be based on a harmonious constellation of economic, military, and ideational power. That's why it seems currently only the West has this material capabilities to create reliable, stable institutions along original new ideas to solve emerging problems in our world. And here we see the dominant West and the anti-Western coalition around Russia. Russian failures in Ukraine create a if you can't beat them, join them situation for states in the Russia-led anti-Western, anti-hegemonial coalition. In international relations, this is called bandwagoning, especially in wartime. The closer one side is to victory, the greater the tendency for others to bandwagon with it. Working with the US Western liberal hegemony offers economic, technological, and security benefits, while counterbalancing is proving to be unfeasible. Collective liberal hegemony can sustain public goods in an open global economic order, allowing many countries to develop and cooperate in coping with climate change. Public goods are undersupplied in the absence of a central authority to coordinate collective action. The construction and maintenance of a rules-based liberal international order is a public good for all states. Without a hegemon, the system will likely collapse because of widespread free riding. Lack of mutual confidence makes interstate cooperation very difficult, as the famous prisoner's dilemma game shows. Because gangs or mafia organizations institutionalize a rule of silence, their members can trust and cooperate with each other. Thus, they remain silent and prevail in the prisoner's dilemma game, escaping the trap law enforcement set for them. The world needs such smart institutions for effective international cooperation on global problems. To solve the climate crisis in the absence of world government, the liberal international order is a necessary starting point. You may want to call it a necessary evil as well, considering ecological problems, because as the liberal international order continues as it currently does, it's based on economic growth, and unlimited economic growth is not sustainable, and we are headed towards a major ecological catastrophe unless the existing liberal order radically reforms itself. I'm not personally calling for revolution, but radical reform instead. But only time will show whether this is feasible or not. Coming back to the United States, domestic political constraints, because of its democratic nature, restrict American military or foreign adventurism, at least to some extent, making the country more acceptable to the rest of the world for assuming internationally and multilaterally coordinated leadership roles. And here, Adam Watson's classic book, International Society, offers a simple model of centralization and decentralization in regional and global international systems, with which we can here think together, perhaps. And basically, Watson looks at the dynamics of centralization and decentralization, and centralization is epitomized in empires, and decentralized systems are systems of multiple independent states operating in an anarchic environment. Um, Actually, Watson has this pendulum model. On one extreme, we have the empire. On the other extreme, we have multiple independences. And both of these extremes actually offer benefits, but also undesirable in certain other regards, such as, for instance, empires provide peace and trade for a large territory, rule of law, issuing of internationally valid currency in the imperial domains, at least. But the downside of the empire is the human nature desiring to be independent, and different religious and ethnic communities within the empire again and again desiring to be independent and to have some kind of national self-determination. And decentralized systems satisfy this desire for independence on the one hand, but on the other hand, they create a host of other problems, such as lack of coordination regarding common problems, and conflicts and wars also. So actually, Watson starts its survey of empires with the Assyrian Empire. This is 1800 to 600 BC. In the same geographic area, afterwards, we have the emergence of the Roman Empire, which will, as you remember, will divide into two, and East Roman Empire will continue. But here we see the Islamic expansion and the Islamic Empire by 750, and the Ottoman Empire that survived into the 20th century and is now continued as Turkey. And here, this is 5th century BC Hellenistic era, and we see the multiple Greek city-states existing in an anarchic, decentralized order. Similar is India in 600 AD, with multiple independent political entities competing with each other. Here we see Italy in 1494. Another example for decentralized international order actually here is 1700 Europe. Here we see 6, 7 great powers operating in a balance of power system, with Germany and Italy not yet unified, and the position of United Kingdom in the periphery of the European continent is to act as balancer whenever a power on the continent of Europe attempts to create a European-wide hegemony, and these will be the French and the Germans. Britain actually forms an anti-hegemonial coalition, and actually leads to the defeat of this attempt. And here we see the Napoleonic attempt in Europe, here in this map, 1812, to create a French hegemony on Europe. And United Kingdom will defeat Napoleon and hinder that hegemonic attempt and keep Europe divided. And in fact, it was the United Kingdom, the first power in world history to create a global order, a British empire that spread around the globe, and beyond it, using the British naval power and the reliable British pound sterling, United Kingdom established a global liberal economic order in the 1800s that lasted at least until the World War I, after which the UK had no longer the power to act as a hegemon, and the United States, after World War I, failed to adopt this role of global hegemon and returned to its historical and traditional stance of isolationism. Hence, no hegemon emerging after World War I. We had the Great Depression and a very conflictual period with different economic nationalisms clashing with each other, and gradually World War II happening. And we see here the German and Nazi attempt to establish German hegemony on the European continent and beyond, which was defeated during World War II, after which the United States this time realized that the oceans no longer provide national security to it, and the United States realized that it had to be active in world politics in order to protect its own national security. And currently, and this is a map from 2020, the US has about 750 bases in at least 80 countries, and 173,000 troops deployed in 159 countries. Here we see the distribution of global reserve currencies and the dominance of the US dollar together with other Western currencies. Of course, the IMF and the World Bank and the World Trade Organization create a liberal economic order based upon American military and economic power, as well as cultural hegemony, as we see here with these brands. And if you can remember how some of these technology companies changed human culture and civilization, we see the extent of cultural hegemony. But together with this partial American and Western hegemony, we have 200 different independent states constituting a very decentralized international order. However, the challenge we have is that our planet is a single entity, and at the moment we are facing grave ecological dangers that may quickly lead to extinction of human species on this planet, and international cooperation is urgently needed. Probably we will see the strengthening of liberalism, and maybe its champion, the EU, expanding after the Ukrainian war. As we can see here in this current map, Ukraine and Moldova are together with the West Balkan countries and Turkey indicated in green here. All these countries are candidate members that want to join the European Union. So we may expect a revival of and widening together with perhaps also with deepening together with it, widening of the European Union towards the east. During the last 10 years, Turkey has deviated from its path of European integration and its perhaps 250-year-old path of modernization after the European and the Western models. During the last 10 years, Turkey adopted a more Islamist orientation and pursued a more independent and adventuresome foreign policy that brought to a halt its European integration. But in 2023 May, there will be an election, and the current authoritarian populist government is expected to lose the election, and the six opposition political parties that organize themselves into a so-called table of six are likely to win the elections, and they have repeatedly promised their electorate a comprehensive return of Turkey to democratization. In conclusion, the US and West-centric liberal international order will remain and reform itself in response to the current crisis and the mistakes that caused it. An improved and updated version of liberal hegemony will continue to deepen and widen globally. States that are neutral or in the anti-Western coalition can now bandwagon and obtain significant benefits from cooperation with the West. Coming back to Watson's research, in history, it was repeatedly empire and coercion that brought large territories with diverse populations under a centralized authority. European integration is the first historic instance of voluntary centralization of a regional international order for the collective management of common issues. UK's peaceful exit underscored the voluntary nature of the EU. Turkey's six-party opposition alliance is promising the electorate a decisive and comprehensive return to democracy in the 2023 elections. Likely to win the elections, this coalition may lead Turkey towards democracy, rule-based social market economy, and European integration.